I want to quickly talk to you about how an LLC can revoke S corporation election. So here's the synopsis I want you to pay attention to. So basically, when you talk about LLC revoking S corporation election, you really hear a lot of terminology here. You hear a lot of terminology in terms of how the whole topic is addressed. So there are many terms used to describe an LLC revoking its S corporation election with the IRS. So when you hear the terms such as LLC revoking its S corporation status, LLC revoking an S election, LLC revoking S corporation election, LLC revoking S Corp status, LLC canceling S corporation election, LLC terminating S corporation election, and so on and so forth. All those terms are interchangeable. They mean the same thing. Okay, so it's really important to really understand that the term status or election basically it really means the same thing. It's really important because if you have an S corporation, there are certain requirements you need to abide by, and if you do not comply with those requirements, you're going to lose your status or your election. So if your LLC is taxed as an S corporation and you would like to cancel this election with the IRS, this is known as a voluntary revocation of S corporation status, essentially undoing the filing of Form 2553. And so the IRS doesn't have a specific form to download on their website if your LLC wants to revoke its S corporation status. And so instead, you will need to mail 3 items to the IRS, which together put the IRS on notice that your LLC is revoking its S corporation status. This is really important. There are 3 main items. So the items you need to revoke your LLC's S corporation election with the IRS are: number 1, we're going to put this on the screen because I want to make sure that everybody gets this right. Number 1, you have a letter of revocation of S corporation election. Number 2, you have statement of consent of LLC members for S election revocation. And the third one is IRS Form 8832. I'll explain every item in detail, but I just wanted to make sure, once again, we have a letter of revocation of S corporation election, statement of consent of LLC members for S election revocation, and 3 IRS Form 8832. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. Now, I want to talk a little more with granularity when it comes to the forms that I just told you, those 3 forms. Let's first talk about letter of revocation of S corporation election. So this tells the IRS to stop taxing your LLC like an S corporation. Pretty simple. There is no template. There is no format. You can just write it. You basically you're telling the agency, please, as of now, I want to be taxed as an LLC or a C corporation or whatever. So the IRS will then make a note in your LLC's file that they should not look for an 1120S filing, and they will place your LLC back into its default tax classification, because the default tax classification here is the 1065 partnership, unless you elect to file as a C corporation, in which case you will have to file another form, and then they will expect from you Form 1120. If not, when you actually cancel the Form 1120S, then you go back to Form 1065. If you are a multi-member LLC, but if you are a single member LLC, then you have to be from Form 1040 Schedule C. Now let's talk about the statement of consent. The statement of consent of LLC members for S election revocation. That's the second form you need to send the IRS. So this shows the IRS that all the members of the LLC have agreed to make this change, and they have to sign it though. They have to sign the paperwork, otherwise it is considered null. Okay. So the third item here is Form 8832. This tells the IRS how you want your LLC to be taxed after the S corporation election is revoked. So that's what I just told you, right? So if you have a single member LLC, you will tell the IRS to tax your LLC like a sole proprietorship. In other words, a disregarded entity. So that's what I said, Form 1040 Schedule C. If you have a multi-member LLC, you tell the IRS to tax your LLC like a partnership. So if you want your LLC to be taxed as a C corporation instead, basically what will happen here is that you don't need to file Form 8832. not filing Form 8832 during the LLC's revocation of its S Corporation election, it defaults to an LLC being taxed as a C Corporation. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how an LLC can revoke S Corporation election with the IRS. Now let's talk about LLC revocation of S Corporation letter. I really want to go a little more granular here. So basically, if you need a free template, we can really arrange to send it to you via email. Just let us know in the comment section, and we'll just we'll arrange for you to get an email from us, and so you can have a template. So your LLC revocation of S Corporation letter must include a statement that the LLC is revoking its election to be taxed as an S Corporation under Section 1362A of the Internal Revenue Code. Really important. Section 1362A. You got to put the name of your LLC, the mailing address of your LLC, and your LLC's EIN, also known as a federal tax ID number. You got to have a statement that the LLC doesn't have shares of stock, but rather has percentages of ownership, and a list of the LLC owners and how much of the LLC that each individually own. You got to also specify which taxable year you want the LLC's revocation of the S election to take effect. And you got to have an attachment that actually includes, you got to have an attachment in terms of your revocation letter that shows that all your LLC members have agreed to the S election revocation. This attachment is called a statement of consent of LLC members for S election revocation. That's what I just told you about, okay? And we actually have a free template letter for this too. So you can actually just reach out to us and we'll get back to you. Not a problem. And so the statement of consent of LLC members must include the name of your LLC, its EIN, and a statement that all the members agree to revoke the LLC's S Corporation election. And along with the what I just told you earlier, the statement of consent must also include the LLC member's name. So the names here, the LLC member's mailing address, their tax ID number, how much of the LLC each member individually owns, expressed as a percentage, the date each member acquired their ownership in the LLC, and the date the LLC member's tax year ends. So this is kind of important. And then you got to have a certified mail return receipt. So this is not required, but if you like to be certain and have proof that that your documents arrived properly at the IRS, we recommend sending by certified mail return receipt. Now let's talk about letter of LLC revoking S Corporation election in terms of how do you actually complete the LLC revocation of S Corporation election. Basically, what you want to do here is that you have to put the date. So at the top of the form, you want to enter today's date, and so you put 2 for the IRS mailing address. You will need to enter the address where you originally mailed Form 2553. And if you're not really sure which address you mailed to, there are a few ways to figure this out. If you have a copy of your Form 2553, look at the addresses that you have that you listed at the top. If you don't have your Form 2553, but have your approval letter, CP 261, look at the address where the IRS mailed the approval. And if you don't have either of those items, you'll need to call the IRS business line. That's 1-800-829-4933. And ask them which address they have on file for your LLC. And their hours are Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. through 7 p.m. local time, unless calling from Alaska or Hawaii, then use Pacific time. And so now that you have your LLC address, also known as your principal business address, you want to open the IRS's instruction for Form 2553. Then you want to look for a section called where it says where to file. You will see different mailing addresses based on the address you used for your LLC at the time you filed Form 2553. This is really important, okay? And it's one of those things where you have to really be comfortable as to where you filed in the first place. One thing I want to say here is that what I'm telling you here, you can actually do it yourself, or you can outsource this to a third party. There are companies that actually get this done even quicker, okay? And so make sure that you have spoken with your tax professional and decided what taxable year you want your revocation to take effect, then you want to enter the first day of that taxable year, expressed as the month, day, and year. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about how an LLC can revoke S Corporation election with the IRS. Now let's talk about consent of LLC members to revoke S Corporation election. So how do you complete this consent of LLC members to revoke the S Corporation election? First of all, you want to put the LLC name, the LLC address, you put the mailing address, the EIN, you put the EIN, and the undersigned, you want to enter your LLC's name again, followed by the state in which your LLC was formed, and you want to put LLC members and signature. And the thing here is that you want to enter the information for each of your LLC members, including their name, mailing address, tax identification number. This can be a social security number or ITIN, and how much of the LLC they own. So again, here we're speaking about expressing everything as a percentage. And for the date acquired section, you want to enter the date when this person became a member of the LLC. And so this will likely be the same date your LLC became effective, the date it was approved by the state. And please look at your LLC's articles of organization, certificate of organization, or certificate of formation to find this date. Then you want to enter the date for each member's tax year ends. And the cool thing is that most people run their taxes on the calendar year. So that will be what? January 1st to December 31st. So they will enter 12/31. If you're not really sure when your tax year ends, please ask your accountant. Then have each member sign their name and enter today's date. One thing I want to say here is that it's one of those things where you really need to have the agreement from, like, the signature from all LLC members. And basically, if you have members in multiple states, you want to actually make sure that they all provide their signatures before you do anything. Now, that signature doesn't have to be live. It doesn't have to be like a manual. You can have electronic signature. That works too. The IRS is okay with that. Let me give you a few pro tips here. So let's talk about IRS Form 8832. Basically, you can download IRS Form 8832. It's called Entity Classification Election from the IRS's website. You can see on the screen here. Here is how the first page of that form looks like. Okay, so basically, and Form 8832 must be filed in order to let the IRS know how they should tax your LLC after the S Corporation election is revoked. And as I said earlier, please speak with your accountant before filing Form 8832 because it's very easy to mess this form up and make mistakes. And that will not only have negative consequences, negative tax consequences for your LLC, but it will be a major headache and frustration to try and clean up. Okay, so basically, when we talk about 8832, at the top, you actually enter your LLC's name, its EIN and mailing address, and so you also want to make sure that you check off all the applicable boxes. In terms of the part 1 where it says election information, under one type of election, you're going to check off the second box to state that there was a change in the current classification, and you want to review the boxes that really matter to your situation. This is really important. And basically, when we talk about, I want to talk to you about a box that really matters here. This is box number 6. That's election information. You're going to check off the tax status that your LLC is going to revert back to. And most multi-member LLCs are going to revert back to partnership taxation. If that's the case for you, you want to check off B. And most single member LLCs are going to revert back to sole proprietorship taxation. If that's the case for you, check off C. And so it's one of those things where you have to see what really is applicable to you. And just make sure that every member so you go through the rest of the items here and see what really applies to you, and make sure that you have everybody signs, because there has to be a consent statement and signature. And basically, where do you have to mail everything? It depends on the address of the original address on your LLC approval, okay? And the letter of LLC revoking S Corporation election that you send to the IRS, please expect to hear back from them within 45 to 60 days. It just takes time to process. And by the way, if you have any question regarding what I'm telling you here, please let us know in the comment section and we'll get back to you. Not a problem. We'll certainly get back to you. And we'll give you more answer. We'll give you more granular guidance, if you will. Now let's have a few other questions that really sort of pertain to an S Corporation revocation letter. And the thing is that if your LLC actually send a revocation letter to the IRS, it does not necessarily need to file a final Form 1120S, because on Form 1120S, Section H, you or your accountant would elect S-election termination. And on a Schedule K1, you will select Final K1 at the top. And so basically, once you revoke with the IRS, you also need to revoke S Corporation status with your state. You have to do that, because keep in mind that what I just told you today is about how you can revoke your LLC's S Corporation status with the IRS. The IRS will not contact anyone else on your behalf to update them of the change. So depending on the states where you formed your LLC, you likely need to revoke your S Corporation status with your state's Department of Revenue, Department of Taxation, or equivalent tax office. And so in addition to what I just told you earlier, basically, depending on where you file state taxes, your accountant will likely be changing the way you file your state income tax return as well. So basically, you should not only ask them for assistance on how to properly revoke your LLC's S Corporation election at the state level, but also make sure they are filing your taxes correctly after your LLC's revocation of S Corporation status takes effect, because payroll and withholding amounts, among other things, will change as well. Now, there is something called a 5-year waiting period. So there is a 5-year waiting period for S Corporation election again. So let's say if you terminate your LLC being taxed as an S Corporation, you will not be able to get tax status as an S Corporation again on the same LLC for 5 tax years. So you should be aware of that. And in some cases, the IRS may grant an exception to this rule. However, you will need to consult with your tax professional for details. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. In today's conversation, I was just talking to you about how an LLC can revoke S Corporation election with the IRS. So I give you the synopsis and I give you the pro tips. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll speak to you another time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.